Good evening, everybody. We would ask for you to go ahead and grab a seat, please, so we can go ahead and begin the program. Please grab a seat. We're going to go ahead and get started. I'd like to welcome you to our second annual mental health and our community conversation. I am Director Maurice McDowell with the City of Augusta Parks and Recreation Department. And in partnership with Dr. Marcus Amos, we developed this program a year ago. We felt the need to have this conversation, this dialogue in our community. This is, the month of May is the month of mental health awareness. And so this is a program that we want to continue to build upon. So we thank you so very much for coming out, spend some time with us. We got a great panelist put together here for you. We got a very instrumental, and I would think you guys will find a very profound story speaker coming up next as well. So this will be very enlightening and rich conversation. So again, I want to thank you all for coming out, spending some time with us for something that's very, very near and dear to not only the Parks and Recreation, but the City of Augusta, as we try to continue to build upon the quality of life for all our citizens. One of those key topics is mental health and mental health awareness. And so we want to make certain that we are doing our part from a city perspective, from a Parks and Recreation perspective. At this time, I'll have Dr. Marcus Amos come before us. He will give us a lesson, and then we'll move right into the program. So again, thank you and welcome.
Good evening. Let's all bow heads. Dear Lord, I want to thank you for having us here today. Lord, give us the strength to provide our community and ourselves with a word of spiritual wisdom and comfort. Lord, we have so many people that are struggling in so many ways, personally, with an environment without any ends to meet. So Lord, give our panelists the strength to provide some wisdom, strength, and blessings for our keynote speaker. I ask these blessings in your name, Christ, amen. All right, how's everybody doing today? How's everybody doing today? The first thing that I want to do is, I like to know who's in the building, and we'll do this very quick. And when I say who's in the building, we know why we're here. The title is Mental Health and Our Community. Mental Health and Our Community. Sometimes we look to the right, we look to the left, and that's our help. So what I want to do real quick, I need us to know who's in the building with us. Okay? All right, so everybody has 10 seconds. We're going to take this very serious. You have 10 seconds. There's a circle, there's a square, there's a triangle. Within 10 seconds, you have to identify with one of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Everyone has identified with one of those, right? A circle, a square, and a triangle. Right, so if you are thinking or chose a circle, would you please stand? Through research by Dr. Earl Soto, a person who thinks like a circle, they take their time in their decision makings. Even when they have a lot of trauma or things going on in their life, they still take their time. If they're leaders and they make decisions, they consider everybody's thought before they make a decision. They're very democratic. It could be a Republican, but they're very democratic in their thinking. But they take their time and And a lot of times they always make the right decision, but they consider everybody's thought before they make a decision. So could you give the circle people a hand, if you don't mind? Where are my triangle people? Triangle people are quick thinkers. It's this, that, or this. It's not that they're inconsiderate, but they like to get something done real fast. They're just quick thinkers. It doesn't mean that they're sloppy in their progress, but they're very quick. They see the problem, they discuss the problem. They don't discuss it with a lot of people. If they do, they already know what decision they're going to make. So give our triangle people a round of applause. Where are our squares at? Everybody has to participate. All right, do we have any clergymen in here? Deacons or anything yet? I want you to take a look in this room. Take a look around the room with everybody standing up. If you think like a square, all you think about all day long is drugs, sex, alcohol, and power. So give the squares a round of applause. So at the end of the day, all of the square people, you need to be at these tables in the back, and you need to get some referrals. You need to talk to some people up here and make sure you get everybody's card up here because you're going to need some help later on in life. And our clergymen that stood up, make sure you're able to pray for these individuals that are in the room. But give yourselves a round of applause for saying that. All right, what we're going to do is we're going to dive right in. Mr. McDowell, he mentioned our panelists. I won't go through all of the great things that they've done. I will let them introduce themselves. This is a mental health and wellness event. The title is Mental Health in Our Community. We're going to have a conversation today. We're going to have a nice conversation. There's no script. There's no holds barred. But we're going to make everybody feel comfortable here today. So we can start from the left and go to the right, and you can please introduce yourself. Left to right? My left. My left.
I'm in the middle zone.
Hello, everyone. My name is Shakia Fuller, and I am My name is Shakia Fuller, and I am a licensed professional counselor in the state of South Carolina and Georgia, and author and founder of a private practice called Self Mental Health LLC. And it is a great honor each and every day that I have to serve and assist individuals who are on their self-medicine journey. That's what I refer to sessions as. At my practice, I consider it a wellness center, and we focus on aromatherapy, physical therapy, mental health, and we focus on family and the awareness that it's okay to not be okay, and it's also okay to be okay. So, pleasure to be here for you on today, and look forward to an amazing conversation, discussion this evening.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Tyrone Chanel Kennedy, and I have the privilege of serving as the Dean for the School of Humanities, Education, and Social Sciences at Voorhees University, located in North South Carolina. And I often tell people that I have been tasked with ushering in the next generation of scholar practitioners. My PhD is in psychology, so I'm a psychologist by trade. And I teach teachers how to be teachers. I teach upcoming psychologists. And I teach also those who don't know that they need to understand themselves in order to understand others. And so I am happy to be with you today.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Jocelyn Bayless. I'm a native of Augusta, and I am a double board certified child and adolescent psychiatrist as well as adult psychiatrist. I am the founder and the owner of Ivy Collaborative Healthcare, and people ask me, well, how did you get your name? Is it because of the AKAs? Like, no, it wasn't. So my older son, his pediatrician or his obstetrician was Ivy OBGYN. And so I said, you know, if I ever become a doctor, I'm going to name my practice Ivy something. And so I started out after college as an engineer by training. And so I worked for 8 years as a senior process engineer, not thinking about medicine. But somehow God looked at me and he called me when I was sitting there in church and put on my heart about people and their needs in our church. And so even though I was a mom, even though I was married, and my younger son is here today, God called me to this thing called medicine. And I became a psychiatrist at the age of 30. And so we were up in Ohio, and God called me back to Georgia to serve my people and to serve people that look like me. And so this is my heart, this is my passion, and this is something that I love to do. So for me, it's not about mental illness, it's about mental wellness. So thank you.
All right, thank you. That was great. So we're going to dive right in. I'm going to look at 7 areas. I'm going to ask this question, and I want you to respond to these 7 areas of points. So I'm going to ask you, how do the following affect mental health care among African Americans or anyone? So we're going to start with racism. Need me to repeat the question?
No, I don't need for you to repeat the question, but there are a couple of things, and I think oftentimes, when we take items in silo, we miss the bigger picture. And so embedded in who we are as a people, occupying space that originally wasn't designed for us, that you can't negate, talking about religion, talking about trauma, talking about incarceration, talking about lack, because from all of what we are, it's the trauma that moves us, it's the trauma that puts us in places, it's the trauma that we think about. And so, I know that you mentioned racism, but even in that structural content, that is a mental concept that we continue to struggle with. And we struggle with that concept mentally because it is a mental construct. It was created. And when you think about mental health, mental wealth, and mental wholeness, we don't have the luxury of looking at the world through any other lens other than blackness.
Okay. Poverty.
What I would say to poverty is that many people who live in underserved areas and underdeveloped areas may be considered impoverished, right? And so with that being said, it doesn't mean that they don't have access to the mental health awareness or the skills or what they need in order to be aware. It might mean that they just have not been made, it's not their customs, right? So it can line up with racism or economical situations, and it may not be exposed to the information that they're in need of because of the impoverished area that they're living in. I'll give you an example, and not really when it's concerned to impoverished. However, underserved is what I would the focal point would be on. It's underserved or lack of information that's provided to those specific areas when it comes to the economical view of things.
Now, what about religion? And when I say religion, I'm quite sure there's a slash with culture sometimes within that. So, from an aspect of religion, we have there's some religious beliefs of not getting treatment in some cultures, whether you're male or female. So, what is the impact in relation to religion?
Religion is tough, and the impact of mental health, because a lot of the patients that I see kids and adults, especially here in the South, it's almost like you didn't pray hard enough. You're not believing hard enough. You need to get back into your Bible, and you won't be going through stuff. And I tell people that mental health is an illness. It's a physical illness. I see patients with depression or schizophrenia, and it's not just up here, but they show it physically. And And so religion, for me, is tough because we are pointing the finger at people and saying that you're not doing enough. You know, you're depressed because you don't believe enough. And that is not what it is. It is something that is happening with people in their mind and in their heart, and it manifests itself physically with people. I tell people, you wouldn't tell somebody who's having a heart attack or who's diabetic that you need to pray harder to bring the sugar up or having that heart attack, because that's not what it's about. And so for me, I am a Christian, I am a believer, and I believe that God put me here to spread the word about mental illness and mental disease, to break that stigma, and that it's not about religion or faith. It's about the medical thing that's happening with you.
And before you move on, I want to co-narrate with my colleague here, because there is a situation that we have when we talk about religiosity and spirituality. And so for us to be in these spaces, because I too am a believer, and I believe that that is a piece of my calling to be able to help bridge that gap, because there will be people who will come to you with problems, situations, circumstances, issues, and they're staunch believers in whatever religion they practice. And so it is incumbent upon us as practitioners to be able to tap into that. Because if you're a believer, even in that, if the Bible says that as a man thinketh, so is he. All of these are about shifting mindsets. And you know, we have to be comfortable in this space that sometimes that mindset cannot be shifted alone. You need the help of others. Even the Bible says that there's sound counsel, you know, wisdom is sound counsel, right? And you don't have to go at a lot of these things alone. And we've often been placed in these situations where we're trying to do everything by ourselves. And it was never, even the relationship that we have, we've never been designed to be in a space all alone.
And to that point of all alone, we live in a society that promotes aloneness, of being in solitude. You know, like we look at the term selfies and the cell phones. People are isolating themselves more and more every day, getting away from conversations like we're having on this evening. They're going to text messaging and having the conversations through nonverbal lines of communication, emails. I tell the people I serve all the time, and I'm a believer and follower of Christ, I tell them all the time, it's okay to detach from these devices, because sometimes they can be wicked. They can cause things to go an opposite direction of than what it was intended to go. And we're not meant to be alone. We are supposed to take counsel. That's it. When we look at the church, some churches, some of the people in the pulpit are not trauma informed, and sometimes they may cause more trauma to the individuals who are in the prayer lines, to the individuals who are going through situations. I've had people that I've served to tell me, well, my pastor said, don't take the medicine that I've been prescribed for depression, my depression symptoms. And what I share with those people that share that with me is, it's no different from taking a Tylenol or a headache. It's a need. So when you get this medication that is prescribed to you from a professional, it is a need. It is a need. It's no different from the need that you feel an ailment in your body versus the need for the mental perspective that you are facing and the issue that you are facing, the chemical imbalances that you may be facing, that this medication can assist you with. So sometimes with the religious piece of things, some of the clergy people are uninformed and may cause more trauma.
You hesitated before you said it. I wonder why. I want to say this, but why is it, and this is food for thought, and thank you, we can't pray everything away. And the next point on here, we talk about incarceration. My experience in working in the clinical field, every clinic I worked at has been 90% top heavy, and the 10% that's low heavy has been with males coming to treatment, specifically African American males. Why is that? Why are we so afraid to talk about anything dealing with mental wellness, mental health? My area is sports, so I deal with a lot of athletes when it comes down to mental health and wellness. And I get the conversations on why they don't talk about it. It could affect them in so many different ways. It could be perceived as being weak. So we look into our community. Why is it that our males would not ask for help?
This is the psychological perspective because we created this in a society that we never work and play. We're framing this through the lens of 3 areas of psychology: affective psychology, behavioral psychology, and cognitive psychology. Affective behavioral and cognitive psychology are 3 different components, but they interact and you can't have one without the other. So affective psychology deals with emotions. The Latin word emotere means to move, to ebb, to flow. Behavioral psychology deals with that thing that you do, that tangible action that happens. And then cognitive psychology deals with your mindset, thinking about how you think. So when you ask the question of why are black males and why they don't feel comfortable, because we've created this system that says every black man has to be strong, you have to be tough, you have to be masculine. And so that masculinity is only viewed through the eyes, through the lens of what someone has received based off of the environment in which he or she was raised. And so you equate masculinity with being tough, with never shedding a tear, with never having emotions. And then, you raise men and say you're going to marry a woman, but then we don't want you to be emotional. You hurt you skin your knee on the playground, and what's the first thing your parents say? Suck it up. Suck it up. Suck it up. But when your daughter does that, what happens? It's okay, baby. And then they continue, we perpetuate this cycle so that when they get involved in their relationships, when it's on their job, all of these types of environments, and we say, but you show no emotion. Because we've told them over and over and over again not to show emotions. And so now it's time for them to sit with someone like you and to have these conversations and to bring all of who they are into these spaces. But they haven't had any practice. So how do they do that?
So it becomes a learned behavior.
It is, absolutely.
My dad told me, get up and go drink some water. That was it.
Get up and go drink.
No matter what happens, go drink some water. You'll be okay, you'll be tough. Wow, interesting. Anybody else want to rebuttal off of that?
So on Tuesdays and Fridays, I support the Department of Juvenile Justice. And so I see mainly African American boys who are incarcerated in our DJJ facilities. And it's a shame how most of the kids that I see are African Americans. And we talked about trauma and the trauma that these young men have endured just from the place that they live in the poverty-stricken areas, in the gangs, and how the things that they have seen and witnessed and experienced, they hold on to that. And I see that. And so for me as a psychiatrist, being an African-American psychiatrist, this is why I support those kids. Well, I couldn't be making a lot of money in private practice. But for me, it's important for them to see me, and for me to let them know I see you. And I can with them on their level and can celebrate with them and let them know that they can do better. And one thing that I do with the boys or the young men when they leave the facility, I say, you know what, I need you to do me a favor. And they're like, okay, I'm Dr. Davis, what you need to do? So I need you to do me a favor. I need for you to be the king that you were meant to be. Do you think you can do that? Oh, okay. And so it's important for me, for them to see someone that's speaking life into them. Because most of the doctors that they see don't look like them. They don't have those experiences that they do. And they can understand when Pookie talking about, I'm straight. I know what he's talking about. Or, what's up? I can sort of help my son learn some of the DJs and the songs that they're listening to. Because I think for me it's important to meet people where they are. And it helps that, I was raised over in South Augusta. I went to Terrace Manor in Barton Chapel at the time it was elementary school, and finished up at Glenview. So I know some of the things that they've gone through. And to speak life into them and give them hope is so important to me because they don't get that in the community. They weren't raised with that. And so as a culture, we need to change those things and how we're teaching our boys and our young men and our women as well, and how we're looking at things and being self-aware of what's going on inside of us and noticing when you say you're going through something, what does that really mean? And when our young men do get hurt, you know, and letting them know it's okay to ask for help. You know, you're still there, you know, you're still tough and whatever, but it's okay to speak on those things.
And I think it's critical that she made the point that we are to meet people where we are. My husband always says, hey husband, but my husband and I always have these conversations that we often want the finished product when we talk to people and when we deal with people, right? But we give our own selves grace to grow. We give ourselves grace to grow, but when we're dealing with other people, we want the finished product. And it's critical if we're going to begin to shift this perspective of what it means to be whole, what it means to be mentally well, that we have to allow grace. We have to meet people in the spaces that they are, understanding that a lot of who they're presenting is about anger and frustration. One of the two most reply responses when you ask young boys in K through 6, middle school, high school, and even for us on the collegiate level, you know, what's wrong? Tell me what's wrong. I'm angry, I'm mad, I'm frustrated. And so to be able to own those emotions, and oftentimes we're very dismissive when people tell us they're hurt, when people tell us they're angry, when they tell us they're mad, they're frustrated. So we have to allow space to be okay in that, to own that, and to not discount or discredit anybody's feelings. Not to allow them to stay there. There's a process that moves us through, but to be able to be aware in that moment, acknowledge that, and be okay with that, and then make steps to move forward.
Okay, great. Right, I'm going to go from my left to your right. Okay, and I want us to talk a little bit about why are we oblivious sometimes to self-care. Just think about it. If we take 15 minutes a day to just sit down, breathe, how often do we actually take time out for our own self-care? And why is that such an issue right now? If you walk into someone and you ask them, what did you do today? They'll give you a list of things that they did today. And it's nothing about their own self-care at times. So going from left to right, kind of rebuttal off of that. What is the kryptonite to self-care? Why is there kryptonite when it comes down to self-care?
So with self-care, it's not promoted in today's society. We look at the jobs and when we have the loss of a loved one, the jobs allow 3 days off for bereavement. Who can actually experience grief in 3 days? No one, right? And most likely that person is in shock, especially if it's a person that was near and dear to them. And so society do not promote self-care. And so that's why the name of my practice is self-mental health, because focusing back on the self. And so basically on a day-to-day, people are working and they have other roles to fulfill. So self is on the back burner because of the roles that need to be fulfilled. So at home, if they have loved ones, if they have children, they're worried about the children, they're worried about home life. And then it's mainly time for bed. So there's no time from transitioning from work, those obligations, to home, and then sleep, if they're sleeping. Because sometimes just because of the course of the day and the way it's flowing, they may not even be having a sound night of rest because of what they're experiencing throughout the course of their day. So with self-care, it requires being intentional about the time spent with self, and also putting the devices down to see what do I need in this moment. My counterparts talked about meeting someone where they are. Well, it requires meeting yourself where you are on a day-to-day basis, checking in with yourself. I always talk about the importance is the importance of checking in with yourself. And that requires maybe 1 to 7 to 10 to 20 times per day. How am I right now? Am I hungry? Most people aren't even taking the time to eat lunch. That's a part of self-care, nourishment. Something that basic. So the reason why it's not happening, in my opinion, is people are not giving themselves any time for it to take place.
Thank you.
For me, I believe it's simply because collectively, as a society, we've created a culture of busyness. Not necessarily productivity, because you can be busy and not be productive. And that's where we find ourselves sometimes, running from here to there. You know, we have to drop the kids off at school, we have to do the job, we have to get home and, make dinner, or for those who have to do all that. I don't necessarily have to do that as much anymore. But I also find myself neglecting myself. So it's easy to stand or sit here as a professional and to say, well, hey, this is what you should do. Yeah, we know what we should do, but we don't often do the things that we should do. And you're right, and I'm having to battle with that myself, in that when you ride on an airplane and the airline stewardess goes through the little details, or sometimes we're not having to listen, but we pray, Lord, please keep the airplane float. The first thing they tell you when the oxygen mask drops down, to do what? Apply it to yourself first and then to others. Why? Because we realize that we cannot pour from an empty cup.
That's beautiful. My son is smiling because he and I were talking about this last night with the airline. Yes, it is confirmation. And my word for this year, again, is intentional. And so intentional is being deliberate about what you're doing, making those choices, intentional choices on what you're doing, good, bad, or indifferent. And so, oh man, this is confirmation. This is confirmation. So as a physician, I'm a medical doctor. And in anatomy class, we dissect bodies. And what I didn't realize until just a few years ago was one thing about the heart. You know that the heart gets oxygenated blood from the lungs and goes into the left side of the heart, and then it goes to the rest of the body, right? One thing that the body does is before it sends that oxygenated blood to the rest of the body, it feeds itself. And so that's the thing that we have to do as people, as women, as men. We need to feed ourselves first. Because I can't pour into you if I'm empty. And it's so easier said than done. And checking in with ourselves, oh, that's golden. That's golden because we are so good about caring for other people, caring for the job, staying late and working hard. But what about us caring for ourselves? And so again, before we give anything else to the rest of the body, to everybody else, let's feed ourselves.
So real quick, I'm going to give you this last question, because we do have some young people in the room. We have one 21-year-old that I was told today, someone is claiming 21 today they were talking about, so I guess they'll be considered a young person too. But what is the right, is there a right or wrong age to have a conversation with a young person? When we talk about a young person, we're talking about someone under 18. Most of the time when we say young in our age, we're talking about 15 on that. So if you can give me, each one of you, 30 seconds, is there a right age to attack any conversations or address anything about mental health and wellness and what you see? Because sometimes we say they're just young, they can work with somebody. What is the right age to have that conversation, if there is one, in 30 seconds?
I would say that each child is unique, so you have to gauge who you're in the company of. And I say that because I have a toddler, and I've been talking to him about mental health awareness, and if people are being mean to you, what that looks like, what people should say, and things that people should not be saying. Companies should keep it. He's 7, and I've been talking to him since maybe he was 5, and he's able to understand what I'm telling him. So we have some people that call the office and want their children at the age of 3, at the age of 4, at the age of 5 to see a clinician. And the first thing that we're asking is, how are you engaging your child, and on what level is that child discussing his or her issues with you? Because you have some 5-year-olds that can articulate very well what is going on with them in their environment. And so I would say to them, you have to know who you're in the presence of in order for you to say yea or nay to the age-specific conversations that would be had concerning mental health awareness.
Thank you.
I'm going to say as early as you feel is necessary. They're going to come to you with issues, questions, concerns, and I say this even in light of my own baby girl sitting here where you can. And clearly, because when we talk about intersectionality, all of these things coming together as one. My daughter is on the spectrum, okay? So she's going to have these issues where, she's not socially involved as everyone else, but she's still looking at her social media. She's not dressing like everyone else. She's not, doing other things like everyone else. So when you begin to talk and have these conversations, and it comes up that, hey, so-and-so, talked about suicide, or so-and-so, well, what's the, suicide ideation? It's time to start having these conversations. Mental health is, an issue for the 3-year-old, for the 5-year-old, for the 7-year-old, for the 17-year-old. And so as early and as often as you can to begin to have these conversations so that your children, your nieces, your nephews knows that it is okay to talk about what you're feeling. It is okay to not feel well. It is okay to have these conversations. And I would say, just as the psychologist here, the earlier, the better.
I would just do what my colleagues have said up here. I think it depends on the kid and their situation or development level. As parents, you know your child the best. And so you know what your child can handle, whether it's the death of a family member or the suicidal ideation. Just meeting the kid where they are and developmentally sharing with them what they need to know.
Man, that was awesome. You know why that was awesome? Yeah, one person stayed in 30 seconds. But I was just joking. But give them a round of applause, and I thank them for this information. But I know it's tough when someone says pinpoint something, especially when we're talking about you. So I know that's very difficult. So I know that was extremely unfair. But thank you for that anyway. So at this time, what we'll do is we want to roll into any questions. We'll do a Q&A. And we'll have someone to bring the microphone to you. If you raise your hand and if you have a question, comment, concern, you will be able to do that. And at this point, Richard, why is your hand up?
I'm trying to figure out, first of all, my wife would have her hand. Ladies, outstanding job. Each of you had a gift. But I do want you to elaborate on this quote. If you don't make time for your mental wellness, you'll be forced to make time for your mental illness. If you can elaborate on again that quote, if you don't make time for your mental wellness, you'll be forced to make time for your mental illness. What does that mean to each one of you?
So what that means to me is something that I elaborate on almost every time I have the opportunity to serve and assist the people that choose me to be a part of their self-investment journey. And I give them this metaphor analogy, and I tell them, like, when you drive in your car and that light comes on and you need gas, and you're like, I know my car, I know how far it's going to go. It's not going to put me down. It's going to get me home, or it's going to get me to work. However, that car, when it's out of gas, it's going to go kaput. And it doesn't matter if you're on the back roads of Savannah where the deer and all the wildlife is running, put you down.
Exactly.
And you may not have roadside assistance, or you may not have the things that you need in order to have the access to the gas that you need to get to your destination. So what I would say to that is, take heed to the warning signs. We talked about self-care. Take a moment to just say, how am I today? Before you put your feet on the ground, right? Because if you don't, there's an amazing book out there, the body keeps a score on everything. And I tell the people I serve, if you don't take time for yourself and spend some time with yourself and nurture yourself, then your body is going to put you down. And that looks like fatigue. That looks like running on fumes. And that looks like being in the bed sick.
And to that, I would definitely, add in this space that, like your grandmother used to say, prevention is the best medicine. Just being intentional about stopping. Like I said, you see the gas, don't wait till the light comes on. Go ahead and be intentional about the prevention. And so that's where I am in this space and in this moment. This is my year of intentionality with prevention.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions that we have in the audience?
I have a question. What's the purpose of life?
Uh-huh. Gotcha.
I'm 7 years old.
The 7-year-old is the toughest one.
Okay.
So what is the purpose of life? Each one of us is positioned for purpose, a different purpose. Your purpose is going to be different than the next young man's purpose. But each one of us, we have a purpose to the gifts that have been embedded in us, to do the best we can with the time that we have to add value to the most people that we can while we're here on this earth. That's what I think each one of our purposes is.
Beautiful, beautiful question.
I know my purpose because my great dad that I'm sitting next to right here, he taught me how to be a business owner.
Awesome, we got that right.
My dad is the greatest dad.
Drop the mic.
It's going to be a good birthday present. First of all, my name is Tim Rousseau. Thank you, Marcus, for inviting me to be there. We got a neighbor here I've only known for maybe about 2 months, maybe. Her name is Rosetta. Rose. And I didn't know her before she had this stroke. But I seen the effects of it and wanted to know what can you do and what do you have to offer, any assistance that you may have that she may not be able to afford, that she may be able to look into.
Any for her mental health, physical health?
Stroke, she had
Mental
a
health.
stroke. She had a stroke and it kind of left her, off balance. Her anger is, and she's very easy to get, angry, frustrated, and it's definitely something there. She goes to her doctor, and I don't know if you want to talk to her. We can talk to her.
I could
Yeah. Hello, everybody.
Hey, how you doing?
I had a stroke in October of 2022. I was out in Arizona, and I was on high blood pressure medication. I used to take it every day. Well, I tried to take it most of the time. But I was okay. $2 or $3 to make make ends meet like most black people. So when I came home October the 4th. I don't remember too much. I don't remember too much about this stroke. I just remember I woke up and it was hot. And I called my son who lived in Atlanta. And he said, "What's wrong?" I said, ain't nothing wrong. So
I called my neighbor and she came and seen about me. And I went to
the doctor. The next morning I couldn't walk. And they told me I had a stroke. I stayed in the hospital for over a month. The next month I went to a rehabilitation center to learn how to walk again. So I had a stretcher to walk with. I hated it. I didn't want to use the stretcher. I get upset easily. I feel like I can't talk sometimes. When I get upset, I can't express myself. And I can hardly control my anger. I be really relaxed out.
So basically, what we'd like to know is what can you direct us to, or do we have a program that may have some financial assistance maybe to help?
Thank you for being vulnerable, and we all know that sometimes when we have physical challenges, physical conditions, it can ramifications mental health conditions. So I think the question is, what are some free resources that she may utilize as she's battling, getting well, healing with her mental health? Thank you.
Rose, first of all, since it's been 8 months since you had your stroke, you have progressed so well. So I have
Exactly.
there's a saying, I know you're not where you want to be, but you know what, thank God that you're not where you used to be. Okay? And so whoever your doctor is, wherever you're going to get your medical care, find out if they have a social worker who's there. Depending on where you go, what kind of facility, maybe they have a social worker that can direct you into some programs or some free services. So that's first and foremost how I would tell you. If you have insurance, call your insurance on the back of your car and find out what resources are available for you also. I definitely would like you to get into a counseling, see a therapist that can work with you on the medical issues that you're talking about and how it's affecting your mental illness or your mental, what's going on with you.
Right now, she isn't eligible for Medicare, so that's kind of, prolonging that process. So that was one reason I wanted to bring her here, to see if there's anything or assistance, financial assistance, or any type of free program that may be able to push her forward until that kicks in.
Yeah, I wanted to add.
Yes.
One thing that you can do, and I tell this often when I'm giving presentations, that you can hit pound 211 in any city in the United States, and they can provide you a list of free resources in your local area. So again, the number pound 211, and they can help with financial resources as well as mental health resources. So I implore you to try that out. Thank you so much for your question.
And thank you for that information that you provided. Thank you so much.
Can I see a question over there? We have one.
So we got time for, how many more questions we have?
Okay, a reply to this, and then we're gonna come over here.
So we have the question over here and over here.
You all will know better than me. Would NAMI also be a good resource for her? Because 211 will take care of that.
You can go to NAMI, yes, that's also a great
NAMI is the National Mental Health agency that provides all type of resources, including complementary resources.
All right, we have time for one more question.
We have a young lady right here in the back who has a question.
My name is Julian, I'm 14 years old, and I wanted to
siblings. And so my parents took the time with children in the community, and they also gave back in charitable giving and with foster care and foster families. They supported these people that were a part of the community, and I wanted to follow in their footsteps, and they showed what entrepreneurship looked like in the home. And so I knew at one point I wanted to be my own boss, and also I wanted to serve and assist others. And that young man talked about purpose. I felt as if, and I still feel that this is my purpose in life. This is my assignment that has been given to me from the Lord.
My motivation stems from being raised in low-income housing and looking at the trajectory of both of my brothers. There are 3 of us. I am the youngest, and I have 2 older brothers. And both of my brothers were incarcerated at early ages. And even when people would talk, whether it was the teachers or counselors, they always talked about behavior. And so I was intrigued just to learn more. I initially started out as a criminologist. But once I realized that the problems of this world were germane to behavioral problems, it made me switch my focus. So that's what motivated me.
So for me, it's just a desire to help people, and a desire to help people that look like me, and to reduce the stigma. It is a stigma of mental illness, and that we can get help, and it's okay to say, I'm not okay.
Well, that was a lot to impact in a short amount of time. But wow, I mean, just to have, the question from someone who we probably thought would not ask a question in the building, and this young man posed a great question. And I thank you for your response and how you answered that, Dr. Hemby. But I want to give them a round of applause for being here. And like I said, it's a lot to impact in a short amount of time, and I'm sorry that we weren't able to get to all the questions, because I know there's some things running in everybody's mind and they want to ask, but that's what's part of the conversation and why we're here. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to take a brief intermission, but while we do that, we want you to understand that and know that we do have some vendors in the back, and some of the questions that we might have in reference to referrals, just getting some resources, we have that in the building right now, and not just in the back of the tables. We have individuals sitting there, some counselors and clinicians. And just so you know, in the back we have the Augusta University Suicide Prevention, Self, Mental Health, CSRA, Economic Opportunity Authority, GRAYS, GRAYS, Mnemonic, and Care Source. So please, at this time, if you feel like getting up, going back, having a conversation, I think some of them have some goodies and some free stuff, please do. But before we depart, please give them another round of applause and thank them for being here. And that's what we'll take a few minutes to change over, and we'll come back with our keynote speaker. Everybody can make it back to their seats. Walter, if you can get everybody come to their seats. Announce free meals at the restaurant tonight. If everybody can make it to their seats. All right, everyone, we want to go ahead and get started. If everyone can make their way to their seats as smoothly as you can. If everyone can make it to their seats, please, so we can go ahead and get started. All right, thank you so much. As we are moving to our seats, it gives me great pleasure to introduce this person. In 2019, mid-18, in Austin, Texas, I had the privilege of meeting Mr. Chris Singleton at the Black Student Athlete Summit. He was one of the keynote speakers, and I was one of the session speakers. And it was just a pleasure for me to meet him. We had a great conversation in Texas, and we've always said, well, let's put something together in Augusta and come visit Augusta. At the time he was living, I think, he was still in Arizona, back and forth, being originally from Charleston. And so I knew that was perfect, that we would eventually be able to put something together. And today he's here. So let me tell you a little something about Chris. Chris Singleton is a former professional athlete drafted by the Chicago Bulls in 2017. Following the loss of his mother in a racially motivated mass shooting, Chris has now become an inspirational speaker and best-selling author who has shared his message of unity and racial reconciliation with NFL and NBA teams, as well as multiple Fortune 500 companies across the country. He shares with over 100 organizations and over 30,000 students annually, and resides with his spouse, Mariana, and his sons, CJ and Kaden, in Charleston, South Carolina. Without further ado, would you please put your hands together for Mr. Chris Singleton.
Awesome, what an honor it is to be here. I'm so grateful. Last night I was on the airplane headed back from Chicago, and I got in there last night in Charleston. And this morning I got to take my kids to school, and I drove up not too long after. I'm grateful to be here. This is my 69th engagement of the year. And so far, my wife gives me a number of days I didn't be gone. Me and my wife have been rocking since we were 15 years old. And so she knows me like the back of her hand. So she gives me 150 days. Every year she says, Chris, I know you want to change the world. I know your heart. I know what you've been through. But we got 2 kids, and I didn't make these by myself. So she gave me 150 days every year to spread this message of unity, of love, of resilience. And here today, as I'm just sitting down and listening to the panel, the first thing I want to do is pretty simple. I want everybody to stand up for me real quick. It's going to be a little weird for some. It's going to be really easy for others, okay? But I need you to, if you're comfortable, I want you to give somebody a hug, look them in the face, and tell them you love them, okay? I I need two arm hug too, not one arm, kind of sort of. All right, now we can be seated. Blessing, man. What an honor it is to be here. So the reason why I'm on the road so much, every single year for the last 6 years after I got done playing sports, I've been doing this work. And for me, it all started after I lost my mom, my hero. And so some people have like a so-called why they do what they do. And for me, most people, I think that the why is pretty much the same. Most people want to make the world a better place. Most people want to provide for their families, right? Those two things, usually good-hearted people want those two things. But for me, it's pretty simple. I got these 5 numbers, and these 5 numbers are the reason why I do the work that I do. If in the back, I want you to listen closely, because this is the reason why I can be away from my family. My 5-year-old son, my 1-year-old son, my pregnant wife, for 150 days a year, it's because of these 5. It's 1, 70, 50, 9, and 1. Unfortunately, there was one person who walked into my church and he fired over 70 bullets in Charleston, South Carolina. Your Bible says people are holding hands and praying in my church. And over 50 of those bullets entered bodies. People are holding hands and praying. This guy took 9 lives, and one of those lives happened to be my hero. The children's church pastor of my church. She was a track coach at my high school. She was my biggest fan. She was my mom. The reason why I do this work is because of those 5 numbers. And as I walked in and I saw the pink and green, I said, my mom is smiling in heaven right now because she's an AKA. And just seeing you ladies being here and me getting an opportunity to share with you means so much to me. And so I say that for a reason, man. And for me, every time I ask you to get up and give somebody a hug and say I love you, like I want it to be a real hug and a real I love you. The reason why I say this is because when I was going through all the trauma that I was going through when I lost my mom, I was pretending like I was okay. And the analogy that I like to use is, everybody said that I was so strong, and they mentioned how we think strong means not crying. We think strong means you're like Superman, you know, super bulletproof. You shoot lasers out of your eyes, right? You're flying in the sky, nothing hurts you. And so after my mom was killed, I was on the Today Show. And they brought me on the Today Show, and I got to meet John Cena. I got to hit BP with the Yankees and throw the first pitch. And right after that, ESPN approached me and said, Chris, we want to do a story about you and your mom. It was an ESPN documentary called E60. And so that aired about 2 or 3 months after my mom was killed. Right after that, there's a quarterback named Tom Brady. He called me up to Foxborough. He said, Chris, I want you to spend 4 days with the Patriots. He said, man, you've been through so much. We want to support you. We want to support your family. And so all these things kept happening back to back to back to back. And when I'm on TV, I get all these messages. Chris, you're so strong. Chris, thank you for what you've done for our city, bringing us together. Chris, keep your family together. Chris, you got this. Keep going. You're so strong. Now, when I was on TV, I wasn't crying. When I was getting interviewed, I wasn't crying. When I was starting the first days for the Yankees, I wasn't crying. When Cam Newton, the quarterback, came to my house because he said, I want to support you and your family, when people saw that on social media, I wasn't crying. So immediately I started to say, okay, if I wasn't crying, everybody's saying I'm so strong, it means I got to keep up with this act that I've been putting on. And I made a big mistake. I think for me now, I understand. And I'm a young guy, but for the last 7.5 years, I've been taking care of my little brother and sister after my mom was killed and my father passed away. And I realized I made some mistakes, and one of the mistakes I made was pretending like I was okay. Now, what does that mean? That means when everybody says you're so strong, you say, thank you, I appreciate it, I'm going to keep it going. When people say be strong for your mom, I thought that day, okay, Chris, don't cry in front of anybody because you have that on TV. And as soon as you do that, people will think that you're not strong. I realize to me now, man, some of the strongest men I've ever met before my life, I've seen him cry real tears. I think about my basketball coach when I was in high school, and I wanted to be just like this guy. He's 6'5", he's chiseled, and he's dating a supermodel all the time, right? And so in high school, your coach is dating a supermodel, I want to be just like this guy, right? And I remember, man, his father was an alcoholic. He talked about his father would come home after work, and he'd drink beer after beer after beer. And he said his escape was going to play basketball because his dad would beat him. Now, I've never heard a man before in my life talk about pain like that, especially somebody I wanted to be like. I've never met somebody before be that open. And when he's that open, I finally felt secure in myself enough to say, you know what? My superhero father is also struggling with a disease called alcoholism. I didn't tell anybody about it before. My coach did, the guy I wanted to be like. He shared, I said, you know what, maybe it's okay for me to share these things, and I started to do that. Another reason why I asked you to say I love you to somebody and give them a hug. Sometimes when I say that, you know, I do this a lot in schools. And so when I go to schools, I say, get up, give somebody a hug, tell them you love them. Now, only place I can't do this at is middle school, okay? Because middle school get a little wild, get a little crazy, right? It gets all over the place. But most times when I do it, man, I realize, you know, they'll give them a dab, get one, boom. Hey, let me just give you one of these, man. I'm not trying to bring it in. And I realize how many people haven't gotten a real hug in years. I mean, seriously, think about it. Haven't gotten a real hug in years. And even being a man, we talked about how when you're a boy, it's like, hey, man, get up. You look at athletes, especially if you playing sports growing up. You get hurt, hey, man, throw some dirt on that jump, man. You good? Let's go. You better suck it up, man. You want to get out the game? And I realized for me, man, there was a point in my life where I really need somebody to tell me they love me. Give me a hug, man. The text was cool. The I'm praying for you was great. I need somebody to give me a hug and just say, Chris, I know it's not easy right now. And so I don't know who in this room needed a hug, but I guarantee somebody else did. The CDC has tested that 1 in every 5 people in America are struggling with some type of mental illness, right? They're working on their mental wellness, but they're struggling right now. And so as we look around the room, I don't know how many people are in here, but 1 in every 5 are struggling with something. And so today my message is going to be simple. I'm going to share some things I wish I would have known when I was faced with this unthinkable. I call it the unthinkable because you see stuff like this happen on TV, right? You see it on your phone. But you never been in this thing that happens to you. And so what do you do when the unthinkable happens? I share some stuff I wish I would have known, some stuff I've taught my little brother, my little sister along the way. The first thing I wish I would have known is that I can't control everything. It's as simple as that. We simply can't control everything. And we live in a time and a place where we like to control it all. We want to control it all. And we can't do that. In our lives, some things will happen that we simply can't control. I'll give you an example of this. When I was coming up, I grew up in Atlanta, right? And so I was a baseball player. He said the Bulls. I wish it was the Bulls. It was the Cubs. I should have looked at it, but I'm not that good, right? But I played professional baseball and drafted by the Cubs when I was coming up. Right, I lived in Atlanta, so my team was the Atlanta Braves. And I remember this is the first time I realized I couldn't control everything. Because I was 5 years old, we were headed to a Braves game, me and my father. My father had a Lexus, it was an all-white Lexus. We were in Atlanta, we were driving on the highway, and I remember seeing some blue lights in the rearview mirror, okay? Now, 5 years old, you don't know everything, but you see some blue lights, you know something's going on, okay? So we get pulled over. This is the first time I realized it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. Some people don't realize this until they're 25. Some people 15. But I was 5 when I realized it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. We're going, pull over, the officer knocks on my ass window. He starts asking me questions. Hey, you drinking tonight, sir? I remember this so vividly because I was scared, I'm nervous. And my dad said, no, I haven't been drinking. Now, my father struggled with this disease and alcoholism my whole entire life. Multiple DUIs, he was in jail for DUI. He really struggled with the disease from his trauma he faced. Anyway, officer asked my dad to step outside the car. Puts him through this whole test. You know how, hopefully you don't know how this goes, right? It was a test, he took him through, makes him stand on one leg and say, this backwards, he makes him walk in a straight line, all these different things. Then he asked my father, can you blow into this breathalyzer for me? It's a device to test the, I think it's alcohol on your breath, you know, and my father failed that test miserably. Now the reason why I remember so vividly is because he asked my father a question. He said, would you like me to cuff you in front or behind the car? Now I'm 5 years old, but by the time I'm out of my seatbelt, I'm hearing everything. I'm seeing my dad get arrested. And I'm screaming and I'm crying. I'm saying it's just Kool-Aid, this and this stuff. But at 5 years old, my father said, behind the car, so my son Chris, little Chris, won't see me. I'm out of my seatbelt, I'm screaming, I'm crying. I see my father get arrested, and I had no control over the fact that my father spiked his Kool-Aid with vodka. That time of his life, he drank and drive every single day, putting my life in danger. Something I couldn't control is my whole life, my father was an alcoholic. I never met another person that I wanted to be like. Mentioned that they struggled, or their family struggled with addiction. So my coach when I was 16. And so my whole life from 5 up until 16, I thought I was the only person that was on my basketball team, on my baseball team, in my high school that had a person here that struggled with addiction. You know how tough that can be if you think you're the only person? I used to see this stuff on TV, and I would watch Scared Straight, and I would watch, there was this intervention they used to have on TV. I was saw this stuff, and I'd be thinking, man, I wish somebody I knew would talk about addiction, but nobody did. Not until I was 16 years old, for the first time a male, that I wanted to be like talking about these things. Okay, the first thing we can't control everything. I couldn't control my alcohol. My father, my dad was my hero. Taught me how to shoot a basketball, throw a baseball, play football. My dad was a great athlete. He dropped step, dunked until he was 40. My dad really struggled with that disease of alcoholism. And somebody said the quote. I want to share this because this is so important. The quote they said, I think it was a husband, and my wife usually comes to an event about once a quarter, okay? It's got to be 75 sunny on a beach, and so she's not here today, but she's going to blame it on the fact that we got the kids, but I asked her to come today. She just didn't want to. But the quote that I saw, I want to share it because this was important. He said, if you don't make time for your mental wellness, you'll be forced to make time for your mental illness. The reason why I say that is because my dad, and I read about this, my dad left journals behind when he passed away, my father. Remember when I was 13 years old, I went to my dad, I said, listen, I understand you're not alcoholic, you got a disease, but I don't understand why you take that first drink. Now I get it, you can't stop once you take the first one, I get it. But at 13 years old, I went to my father and said, why did you take the first one? Because I don't understand that part. My dad started crying to me saying, Chris, I just can't stop. And the reason why I share that quote is because when my father was 8 years old, he saw his dad get murdered in front of him. One thing my dad never did was go to a mental health therapist. One thing my dad never talked about to me was the fact that he saw his dad be killed in front of him. Now, if we don't make time for it now, vices will make time for us later. And we can't run to those things. I've seen it firsthand in my life. I couldn't control the fact that my father struggled with this. Okay, another thing I couldn't control. This is the unthinkable. I want to make it very clear that it's not just lip service the reason why I do this. Because at 18 years old, I was playing a baseball game, finished up my freshman year of college, played at Charleston Southern University, and started almost every single game. And I remember getting a call on my cell phone. And now when I answered my phone, now I had my mother's name on it. Now I know how you guys raise your kids or how you were raised, but my mom was calling me. She gave me 2 rings to pick it up, okay? If I didn't pick that joker up after 2 rings, she's going to tell me about myself, right? And so I answered the phone. I got one at the time, but the lady on the other end, she wasn't my mom. And she was screaming and she was yelling, and she said, well, Christianity down to the church because something bad happened. And so I rushed as fast as I could out of my church. I remember getting down there, and there's police sirens, there's ambulances everywhere. They finally got me to where I was supposed to be. It was an Embassy Suites hotel. Now, when I got to the Embassy Suites, there's a lady from my church. Mother Emmanuel's an older church. We don't have it's not a mega church by any means. Everybody in my church is family. So Miss Alicia came down, and she said, Chris, I got some rough news for you. And I said, yes, ma'am. By this time, I'm nervous. I'm scared because my mom is at Bible study. I I see all these cars that were surrounding my church. I said, okay, what's the bad news? Now, she told me, Chris, your mom got shot, is what she said. Now, when somebody tells me that my mom got shot, I started thinking about, okay, my mom's from Newark, New Jersey. I don't know if you guys know Newark, New Jersey is at. But I said, well, maybe my mom got shot, but it's in her leg or something, or her hand. Right? Because my mom is from New York. She grew up in the projects her whole life. Right? She's street smart. The only reason why she got out of the projects is because she was fast and got a full-time track scholarship to come down south to run South Carolina State. And so I'm thinking about my mom being shot. I said, maybe it's in her leg or something. Surely she's not severely hurt. Now they walk me upstairs in this big open room. This is the unthinkable now. And everybody sat me down, and people are like screaming and crying and praying. And when you're in a situation like this, none of the officers tell you anything. What happens is you'll get updates on your phone, you get a million people calling you, and nobody tells you what happened to your loved one. And I'm sitting down there for hours, and I remember a lady comes up to me. Now this lady comes up to me and she says, Chris, can you do me a big favor? I said, yes ma'am, whatever it is, I'll help you out. She said, Chris, I work for the city, I'm a coroner. And I was so privileged, I didn't know who the coroner was. And hopefully you don't know who they are either. But she asked me, Chris, can you please describe your mom? Now this is the unthinkable, because I just heard that my mother was shot, and now somebody's asking me to describe my mom. And I'm saying to myself, well, trying to make sure my mom's the one that's okay, right? Surely you're not trying to tell me my mother's been so severely hurt that you can't tell me what she looks like anymore. I said, that can't be the case. And I described what my mom looked like. I said, 5'9", short, black, curly hair. I said she just went natural. And I know y'all know what that means. Sometimes I got to describe what that means. But y'all know what that means. And I described everything about my mom. You know, black suit when she left the house that morning. She asked me, well, Chris, does she have any piercings? I said, yes, ma'am, she got ears pierced. And then she said, well, Chris, does she have any tattoos? And my mother was the children's church pastor, Reverend Julian in Singleton. And one of my mom's rules was, she said, boy, you better not tell nobody about my tattoos. And so this lady asked about tattoos. And I'm thinking, I can't. My mom's got a rule, right? If she don't tell me my mom is okay, I'll describe her. I said, okay. I said, she got one tattoo on her left ankle. And I know for sure it's an ice cream cone. And I said, across this ice cream cone, 2 words, you can't miss it. It says, sexy shot. Sexy shot. Reverend Sharon Cole, sexy shot. Last year when I was in Dallas, I was speaking to the school district, and I said, sexy shot, and all the lights went out. I was like, Mom, I didn't know you was missing, right? All the lights went out. But I told this lady about my mom's embarrassing tattoo, and the reason why I shared this is because the unthinkable that I speak about is that the lady came back to me and said, Chris, thank you so much for describing your mom. I got some unfortunate news. The unthinkable was me hearing that my mom was a victim to gun violence that night. The unthinkable is finding out that my mom was killed in a racially motivated mass shooting. The unthinkable is having to tell my 12-year-old brother Caleb my 15-year-old sister Cameron that we wouldn't see our mom ever again. And we're coming to our games. And we're sitting on the couch watching movies. All because somebody was misinformed and misled to hate me the color of my skin. The reason why I share those stories is because I want you to know how real this thing called mental health is. Because after I lost both of my parents and all this TV stuff, I broke down. And I found a quiet place for me to finally cry. I would cry in the shower. Now everybody in the world knew that I was so-called strong, but my wife now, my girlfriend then, she knew what the real deal was. And she knew how broken I was, but I was so scared and nervous that people had just been saying Chris is so strong that I said, okay, well maybe I don't need to go to a therapist. It took me 2 years to see a therapist. And one of the things I wish would have happened when there's a large case like this, a lot of times the FBI, the government will say, hey, we'll give you guys therapy for free for a year. A lot of ignorant people like myself at the time that just didn't know that I needed it because everybody was telling me I was so strong. I waited 2 years. My time was up. And so what I went back to the governor and said, it said to them is, hey, you should have allowed an X amount of sessions or, 15-year period, not just one, not just 18 months. But I finally went. The reason why I went, and I think this is so important, if you got kids that play sports, if you play sports, then a lot of times you say, well, I use this as my getaway. I use my sport as my getaway. Same thing I used to say. I don't really need to go to therapy. I'm going to church, but I use my sport as my getaway. Once I was playing professionally, the first time I ever struggled in my sport, everything came crashing down. And people said, Chris, man, you lost both your parents, you're taking care of your little brother, your little sister. You're not even 21 years old, you let this game get you down. And I broke down because in my mind, I thought my sport was my getaway. But what was actually happening was the success and the applause that I got in my sport was the escape from all the pain that I was feeling. And so for the first time, I sat down with somebody. It took me about 2 years to finally feel comfortable about crying in front of people. To finally realize that strength isn't that we cry or that we have to sit down and take a break. Strength is realizing that we need that. Strength is in saying, okay, I'm not going to stay here forever. That's what strength is to me. Like when I see somebody, it's just in my life, when I see somebody that's successful, I don't want it to be sunshine and rainbows the whole time. That doesn't resonate with me. I need somebody that says, okay, I went through this peak, I went through that valley, but I didn't stay there. And they recognize that it was a valley. And they seek help, and they got help. But they made it out of that valley. And that's what strength is to me, and that's what I was looking for. And so another thing that I wish I would have known, man, because I just started to study resilience. I started just studying. After I was on TV, people would just say, hey, Chris, Chris, I would love for you to speak to my little league team, right? About going through all the stuff you went through. For about a year and a half, I was like, man, I'm playing baseball. I'm chasing my dream. I'm trying not to let my mom down. I'm not going to be speaking to nobody. And finally, when I was like, let me look up some people, and I saw this guy, his name is Inky Johnson. The reason why I speak today is because of this guy, Inky Johnson. But I started to just study resilience. And some of the quotes were aggravating me. So I know y'all heard some of these quotes. Because one of the quotes that I saw that aggravated me so much, it said, sometimes in life, you gotta play the hand that you're dealt. You ever heard that before? Sometimes in life, you gotta play the hand that you're dealt. I said, man, whoever wrote that had a good hand, man. They had to have a good hand. Think about it. Play the hand that you're dealt. They had all spades. I don't know if y'all play spades. They had nothing but spades and they're talking about play the hand that you're dealt. You don't even got a pop. You got nothing in your hand. And they tell you to play the hand that you're dealt. Man, I said, I cannot resonate with that. Then there was a quote that kind of changed my level of thinking, and I want to share it with you because it's the way that I live my life today. In this quote, this guy, Charles Swingle, he said, everybody's life is built on 2 things. He said it's 10% action, which is the stuff that we don't control. And he said it's 90% reaction. What he meant by that is 10% of the stuff that we don't control, the things that happen to us, the past, the unforgiveness that we had. We can't control the 10%. The reason why the light went off my head is because he said we all have 90% to work with. And my 90%, I said, you know what? I can't go back in time and realize that I made a big mistake by not crying in front of my brother and sister for 2 years. Because they didn't cry in front of me for 2 years. I knew they needed to. They were looking at me like, Chris is so strong, and everybody says we gotta follow Chris. They didn't see me crying in the showers like I was. I wish I would have told them that it's okay for you to let it out. I wish I would have told them that I'm not as strong as you think I am. If you think strong is pretending like you're okay, or I can't do it anymore. So my 10%, and I love this quote so much, man, because it's changed my life. My 10% was the fact that my father, my hero, really struggled with his past. He never addressed it. Never got true help. So he formed an addiction to alcohol. He became an alcoholic all his life. You know what my 90% is? My 90% is promising my wife, my 2 kids, our little girl that's on the way, my brother and my sister, that I will never become an alcoholic like my father was. That's my 90%. My My 10% was the fact that my mother, rest her soul, my hero, was murdered in cold blood because of the color of her skin. My 90% is I travel all across this country 150 days out of the year, 41 of the 50 states thus far. And I share a message of unity. I share a message of love. I share a message that will hopefully put an end to racism when I leave that facility. Couldn't control my 10 when they took my mom away, but I can do something with my 90. A lot of us, we can't do anything with our 90 until we address the true pain that we're feeling. Until we talk about that true pain. And I love it so much when my man right here was talking about his neighbor. And I'm sitting down on this, I like to just take notes from other people that before me. And I'm sitting down, I'm saying that's such a powerful example of how you don't know what somebody else is going through. You have no idea what somebody else is going through until you talk to them and or you figure it out. Because what could have happened is if you're her neighbor, what could have happened is maybe she's having a rough day and you said your significant other, you said to somebody, you know what, man, I can't be around this person, man. It is tough for me. I don't like my neighbor. I can't be near my neighbor. How many times we drive, and I'm guilty of this myself now. We're driving, and it's like somebody's having a terrible day. They cutting us off. They doing this. They looking at us like, oh, we all crazy. And our first initial thought is, what's wrong with them? But we don't know what they're going through. People are fighting things, and if we don't realize that everybody's going through something, you guys wouldn't be here today. You wouldn't have brought here today. I give an example of how we never know what people are going through when I talk about me sharing a lot, and I got to speak to the Houston Texans. I would speak to the football team 3 years in a row. I would go there, and I was speaking there one time, and there was the star of the team was J.J. Watt at the time. Now, J.J. Watt was a big star, NFL, huge name. Coolest thing about me speaking there was after I left, they said, Chris, we want to wear your mother's name on our helmets for the rest of the year. I said, man, you guys do that for me. They said, no, not for you, Chris. We're doing it for your mom. She deserves it. And so they did. Now, this is a small gesture to them, but it's in the world to me and my family that people will remember my mom. That's one of my missions in this life, is to keep her legacy alive. And they were doing this, and then the NFL called me. Now, when the NFL called me, they said, Chris, we got a campaign. It's called the Inspire Change Campaign. Can you send us a picture of your mom? We're going to post your mom on our NFL network on Sunday. We're going to say Sharona Coleman Singleton, let's remember her, and let's say her name. They posted my mom, okay? That was all fine. Then they said, send us more pictures, Chris. We want to post it on our Instagram. And this is where things got tricky. Because unfortunately, we forget sometimes we don't know what people are going through online too. And they posted a picture of my mom on Instagram, the NFL did. It said, Sharona Coleman Singleton, let's remember her, let's say her name. And they posted this picture, and I went to the picture. Now, I guess it was part one to see the world for what it could be, not what it always is. But I went to the coach just to say, thank you guys for doing this to my mom. And when I went to this coach to comment that, I saw tons of comments. And they weren't good ones. They said, oh, I got to say the name of every black person that's killed now. People said, what does she deserve to be killed? Somebody said, I'm not saying. I'm seeing this over and over and over again. And this is really tough for me. Because before I probably would have said, you know what? It's fine. I would have turned off my phone. I would have pretended like it didn't affect me. But once I became a true, real man, I realized I needed to cry in that moment. Because this is my hero we're talking about, the one that came to my games, the one that could pay for travel ball on a teacher's salary. They could buy me a baseball bat every single year, not complain ever. People are saying, what does she deserve to be killed in church? I need to cry in that moment. And I'm here to tell you, man, it is okay that we take a moment and we cry. I need to let it out. Now, did I stay there? Absolutely not. But that adds fuel to my fire that I know that we need to keep this mission and this teaching that I'm doing going. Another thing I wish I would have known, man, I'll share two more things. Oh, I wish I would have known. One of the things that I wish I would have known was that you can't lie to yourself. You can lie to everybody else, man, but you cannot lie to yourself. There was times when I was playing baseball and I was struggling, and they call it slump. In baseball, if you're struggling, they call it slump, right? I was in a real slump. And I had never been suicidal in my life. I've never been suicidal my whole life. But there was a moment where I started to think to myself, I said, well, Chris, if there's no joy in me playing baseball, there's no joy the fact that my parents are gone, there's no joy in me trying to figure out how do I keep living this life? I said, well, what is it all for? And in that moment, I started to reflect and say, you know what? I need to talk to somebody when I was playing baseball. I could no longer lie to myself. And for the next 2 years, I worked on being more open with my emotions. I worked on me having a space to cry, having a space to be emotional, having a space to be completely real with somebody, not just lip service. When I found those spaces, it finally gave me the courage to start sharing my truth. Now for me, when I share this therapeutic, some people ask me, Chris, how do you talk about your pain? Most people don't ever share their pain. We bottle it up, we pretend like it's not there, we hope that one day it'll go away, but it won't. And for me, the therapy that I have is sharing my pain, wearing on my sleeve. And I want to point out an example where I knew growth could happen, because at a point in my life, I used to think, man, Christmas was such a big holiday for my family. And I remember there was Christmas right after my mom and my dad were gone. I started to think, man, there's no way I can be happy on Christmas anymore. And there's no way. And holidays were really tough for people that have loved ones that are gone. And I remember, man, there was a Christmas right after my first son was born. And I was sitting at my kitchen table, and I saw my wife holding our son. I saw my little brother and sister opening gifts at our house. And I saw how joyful everybody was. And for the first time, my heart felt like, Chris, you can still have true joy, even after all the pain that you went through. And I cried, and this was the first time I ever had happy tears in my life. And it came years after I thought there's no way I can be joyful anymore. The last thing I'll share is a quote. And this quote is about being selfless. After we talk about being open, sharing the things that we've been through, after we be real with ourselves, we have to share this. And in my faith, they call it sharing the good news, right? And so we have to share the news of it being okay to talk about things. We have to share the news of realizing that you know what people are going through. But this quote is from a guy named Jackie Robinson. You guys know who Jackie Robinson is? You better know who Jackie Robinson is. But I think it's ironic, when I pulled up, I saw some kids playing baseball, went over to talk to them. I got one of the guys' numbers so I can support them, because I'm on the diversity committee for MLB right now. And so I can definitely support those kids out playing. But I always want to end with this quote from Jackie Robinson. The reason why I love this quote is not because Jackie Robinson said it. I love Jackie. But the reason why I love this quote is because I have a hero. And this guy's name is Tywanza Sanders. Now, you may not know who Tywanza is. But my hope is that every time I share Tywanza's name, you won't forget it. Because it's a true hero. It's what selflessness looks like. Tywanza was 26 years young, so I'm 26 in front of you all today. I'm 27 in about a month and a half. And Tywanza, he went to church with my mom, the same night that my mom was killed. And Tywanza was in the room, and a man who was misinformed, and this guy that hate people that looked like me was trying to brothers in my church. Tywanza ended it. But Tywanza didn't pass away at first. What Tywanza actually does is he stands up and looks at the killer, and he starts pleading with this guy. He said, hey, you don't have to do this. We mean you no harm. We mean you no harm. It's actually, he's been shot in real life now. He didn't pretend to be young. He said, you know what, maybe I can save somebody else's life. So he starts pleading with the guy. man didn't have one was teaching him correctly. He said some words. He said, yeah, you have to be this. He took Taiwan's life. The reason why I say Taiwan's my hero, because 15 yards away from him, he had his mom, Miss Felicia, hiding under her table, and Miss Felicia still living today. Miss Felicia, the one that called me from my mother's phone that night. And she lived because of Taiwan's sins, giving himself up, saying, hey, I don't know if I can save my life. Maybe I can save her life. And that's what he did. His little cousin just graduated from high school last year. Little cousin was hiding about 15 yards away from him as well. But Taiwan stood up. He said, maybe I can't change anything for myself, but maybe I can change something for somebody else. And that's exactly what he did with his little cousin. Quote Jackie Robinson is, one life is not important except the impact that it has on other lives. Again, one life is not important except the impact that it has on other lives. So hopefully today I made an impact on yours. If you go out and you remind people, man, it's okay to talk about your feelings. Real strength is a person that can be brutally honest about where they're at and know that they don't have to stay there forever. That's real strength to me. You share this, I know for sure you make an impact on people in your lives, but also make an impact on me and try to make my mom proud. Thank you guys so much.
I've heard this story and we've had a personal conversation off stage in Texas about some other things, so this is awesome.
But what I want everybody to do is that just reflect on what Chris talked about, because some of us came into this room today, some of us had negative thoughts about something, some of us were dealing with something. But just reflect on what he was talking about. Think about the quote at the end. There's value in everybody's lives, but there's also value in what can come out of that when you're dealing with struggles and when you're dealing with trauma. So I just want everybody to think about that and suck that in. And suck it in. And every day, I pray to God when I wake up every day. I ask God to take any hateful thoughts out of my mind, body, and soul towards anyone. And if I should think that way, God, please forgive me. It's because we never know what we're going to go through. We never know what we're going to go through. And once again, if you can, give Chris a round of applause again. We'll take some questions right now. We've got to make sure that that mic right. And we'll go around.
Yeah. My name is Earl States. I'm a retired teacher in Kansas County. But my home is Charleston, South Carolina. I knew Chris's father. I taught him in middle school, met him as a student in middle school, and worked with him in high school. After he graduated, also helped him get into college at Tennessee State. And after that, I didn't see him. The first half of his father's life, I knew him well. And let me tell you something. His father was a model student athlete. A model. I worked with thousands and thousands of kids. And if I had to pick the best ones, the top 100 ones that I worked with, his father would be on that list. But like the gentleman said, you don't take care of your mental wellness, sooner or later, it's going to turn into a mental illness. But I did not know about Chris's dad being killed. I didn't know that part. And as good as a man as he was, it led him to something which led him latter part of his life. But he had a great dad.
Yeah, he was. No, for sure. He was phenomenal. One of the things I wrote, I'm releasing my first adult book in June, and one of the things I wrote about my father was, man, he was always so proud of me and now, just being who I was. I have a hashtag that says, "Can't let moms down." Every post on social media, people ask, "What about your dad?" And I know for a fact my dad was proud of me already when he was living. But I named my son Chris. He named me Chris. We can hopefully keep it going after my pops. Man, great guy, and he was really struggling. And so if we don't get to what's at the root of that struggle, we might find out that unfortunately we'll turn to something else. No doubt. Does anybody have a question for me? Thank you so much. By the way.
I have a question, comment, statement. You're talking about mental illness and mental wellness. What do you think are some of the ingredients? What do you think are some of the ingredients as far as how do we change a mental illness into a mental wellness?
Absolutely. I'll start with my wife, and she's okay with me sharing this now. She used to be a little insecure about it, but after our first child, my wife had really, really rough postpartum depression, and my wife was on antidepressants for about 2.5 years, and slowly but surely with her therapist and her doctor, she was in a really, really rough space. But now she understands when something gets tough or when she has a bad day, she expresses that. She tells me, hey, I'm not feeling too well today. And if she needs a break, we make sure she has her breaks, right? So I think it started off as, it was really rough, especially for our relationship, because you want to do so much when you see somebody that's hurting. And I realized my words could only do so much. But when she was on medicine, it really was really good for her. And now she's not on it anymore, but there's no, like if her doctor says, hey, Marianne, I think we need to start taking this again, there'd be no second guessing about it because it helped us in our relationship, helped me be a better mom, and it helped me be just a better person. So that started off as, being pretty ill at a certain point. But now she's cognizant of things that might be triggers. And so now mentally she's doing a lot better. So that's kind of how from start. That's just a personal example of what it looks like for my family. Another one I'll share. My little brother. My mom was still. My brother really wanted to go to the trial. And my brother was 12 years old. My mom was still. So I said, no, you're not doing that. And for me and our family, my brother was thinking it was a million times worse in his mind than what it actually was. And so as tough as it was, he needed to have answers. Everybody grieves differently. And so for my brother's process, he needed to have certain answers so his mind could just stop going. His mind was just thinking all these different things, and knowing exactly what happened helped him in this process a lot. Now my sister, to this day, she still struggles. And she's open about it. She's still on medication to this day. And I don't know if there'll be a day where she's not on it, but it helps her out a lot. She's tried different medications, and so some people will be like, hey, this works for me, maybe this doesn't work for me. But she's done a lot better in getting to where she is today. And those are kind of some personal stories from my life where people were really struggling, but now they've gotten a lot better. Great question.
Anybody else have a question? Yes.
Chris, man, it's a pleasure to meet you. Thank you for coming out and speaking to us, man. It remind me of my son, saying, Chris, I just showed up to picture of my son. I was like, okay, I ain't nah. I'm on her to down, speak about that. I need that. You think you don't need help with everybody else's problems, but my mom passed back June last year. I was her caregiver, and I was my best friend, and I kind of think the pain, and while I was on my family, I was about everything, I kind of tell you, was stressed, a lot of stress. You want to talk to our psychiatrist? No, I don't want to talk to psychiatrist. No, talk to them, but I'm getting through it. Everybody tell me, like you said, you're so strong, you're so strong. And they're doing more, this is not that strong. So I can definitely relate to what you're saying. So you did an awesome job, man. Thank you.
Absolutely. I do this is the way that I live my life now. When I was coming up, everybody would say it takes a village to raise a child, is what they would say, right? It takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to raise somebody up. And then, the teachers, the pastors, the parents, everybody, therapists, whatever it is. But now I realize I'm a direct representation of my village. So I try to represent my mom well, my father well. And so when they see me, the greatest compliment you can receive is, man, and we were raised the right way, right? As a parent with my kids, if somebody's like, man, CJ, you raised the right way. Even my man over here that was talking about his father, I think there's no better compliment you can receive than your kids telling you, man, my dad's the best dad in the world, and I love you like that. It doesn't get much better than that. So now I live my life to honor her legacy, and I think you're going to continue to do the same.
Chris, got a question right here.
Really enjoyed your story, Chris. My question is around the idea that, first of all, you're a professional athlete, and so physical fitness and physical activity is probably always been paramount. But I'd like for you, if you could, to talk a little bit about how physical fitness or physical activity, what role it played, and just you getting back to you, dealing with the stress and outside of talking about it. I'm just wondering what role physical activity has to play.
Yeah, I think, some people, for me, in my life, I would say I've always been, physically fit. I had no choice. When an athlete, you don't have a choice but to work out. Now, one thing I've stopped is I've stopped lifting heavy, because I've always been skinny my whole life, so I don't have to lift heavy anymore. But when I was going through what I went through, it became a driving force when I was working out, right? So it became the one more rep. It became I need something deeper, and this became the deeper thing that I would use when I was working out. Now I know for a fact working out by itself, even though it clears the mind and helps you, that can't be the only thing. It can't be, but it definitely did help me. Even to this day, if you're upset and you're angry, there's nothing like getting in the weight room and lifting, right? That helps. It truly does. But it doesn't take the place of going to a licensed therapist and talking to somebody. But in my life, I was already doing it. It just helped me. It just helped me for one more rep. When I was like, man, ain't nobody watching. I don't really got to do this last set of lunges. It became the feeling of, oh, I have something that's going to keep me going. So I still use that to this day. I told you my 5 numbers, right? Now, I'm using the wake up. I'm using when I'm on the road, and I feel like I've had a ton of flights this year so far. And traveling a lot is tough when you have to travel a lot. It's cool if you travel once a week for work. It's not cool if you got to travel 3-4 times a week for work, right? And so there's days where I'm like, I feel like 12 hours of travel, 15 hours of travel. But you keep pushing through, and I use what I've gone through to kind of help me with those things. So I think it's working out, yes, and speaking to somebody about what you're going through as well. They go hand in hand, I believe.
We have time for one more question.
Well, all the sports you play, do you gotta worry about asthma problems?
Did I worry about asthma problems? Is that asthma? So I used to have asthma when I was a little kid. I had an inhaler, but no, I don't know if I grew out of it or if something happened and I didn't have to use my inhaler anymore. But no, I never worry about asthma problems. I have 5 things now that I want to do. This is what success, and everybody's success is different, right? These are my 5 things I want to do every year, and this is what I strive to. So I want to make $1 million a year. I want to be a giver financially. I want to continue to be a man of faith. I want my wife to love me, my kids to love me, and I want to be physically fit. So those are my 5. not just playing sports and just in life. So definitely start making goals behind you start riding already. How old are you, by the way? 12? You start 12, must be. Thank you for that question, though. That's important.
How you doing, Chris? My name is Martinez. I don't have a question. I just want to say once again that you really blessed the crowd. I appreciate you for being here. I appreciate the fact that I was able to be here by the invitation of Mr. Rich. And I also just want to say I got a couple of books I want to bless you with because I'm an author as well. I'm in the military right now, but I want to be a keynote speaker just like you when I leave the military. So thank you for what you did, and I want to give these books to you before you leave.
No doubt. Sir.
Wow, that was a lot to unpack. Thank you again, Chris. Thank you for the questions. I think they're all great. Thank the people that are here, because it's about the people that are in the room. As they say, a multitude of information sometimes is great for a small number of people, but we have a lot of people here at heart. So I want to thank everyone that came out, and specifically, I want to acknowledge a couple of people that made this happen. The Richmond County Neighborhood Association Alliance. I don't know if they have any representatives here. I know they were in meetings today. And if they are here, I'll let you know. And I can speak on your behalf. Thank you for your support. Oh, we have Deacon Lowry did come to the building. Deacon Lowry, if you want to stand up real quick, you have something to say before we depart.
No, I just want to say that I'm glad to be here, and I enjoyed the remarks that came from Chris. And we need to take that hard because we have a lot of young people that we don't know about that have mental illness, and we need to start dealing with them and listen to the young people because that's going to help them out a lot. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Deacon Lowry. Thank you. Thank you for the support and sponsorship for this event. And definitely would be remiss. We'd like to thank the ladies of Alpha, Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Thank you so much for all the work that you've done. And we would like for a representative, please stand if you want to give a closing remark or comment about the event.
Good evening. My name is Juanette Pullings, and I'm standing here in the absence of our president, Mrs. Tamika Allen, who is tending to city business right now. However, I would like to thank you, Chris, for opening up and sharing your story with us. You mentioned that your mom is smiling, and so I would just like for the ladies of Zeta Xi Omega chapter to stand so that you can really see the smiles tonight. And so we know that Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated has a strong history of supporting families, and we know that a healthy family is the foundation of a healthy community. And Kappa Alpha feels that mental health, physical health is definitely a serious matter. And so we thank you for sharing with us. We thank the panelists as well. And then also the committee within our organization who helped to foster this partnership. And so I appreciate you all as well. And we just look forward to having more opportunities to be able to partner with organizations as we bring about awareness to mental health.
Thank you so much.
We had some of them had to leave. If some of our commissioners are still here, we have a couple that were here, but I think they had to leave out. So I want to thank them for your support coming out. But thank you. Thank everyone that's in the audience because the time that you took to come here, you never know what you might have said to someone just in common conversation that might be of help. And we heard the stories that were here. Also, we just want everyone to know that we're going to continue to be able to provide some type of awareness in several different areas for our communities, and not just in our surrounding areas, but also within the CSRA. So we want to thank you for that. And with that being said, we want Mr. McDowell to come up, and he's going to close us out today.
Thank you. Thank you to my keynote speaker. Give him a hand again. As many of you may know, this is Mental Health Awareness Month. And Dr. Amos and City of Augusta Parks and Recreation Department, this is our second year of partnering together to bring awareness to the community, to foster an environment where we can have these robust discussions that is needed in our community. We're going to continue to build on what we're starting now. As being the Parks and Recreation Director, one of the things that I ask staff to do, and we try to push our department, is being more involved in the community, but redefining what Parks and Recreation is, not just about sports, but truly about enhancing the quality of life in our community. And a lot of that has to do with some of the things outside of sports, but definitely physical health, mental health. All of those things are important as we continue to build a healthy, vibrant community. This is the city that we want to continue to grow and nurture, and we just doing our part in that. So again, I want to thank Dr. Amos for coming to the city of Augusta, coming to Parks and Recreation, and asking for this level of partnership. We've done it 2 years now. We're going to continue to do it. We're hoping to continue to build a program to spare off these types of conversations. So this won't be my last conversation. Hopefully, since it started, many more conversations we can have. I want to say thank you to all of you all that was able to come out and participate, show your attendance. That means a lot to us. It gives us a goal to continue to build on. So again, we want to thank all our partners, all our sponsors, thank all our panelists for a very healthy conversation. Thank our keynote speaker as well as Dr. Amos, myself, and Parks and Recreation. Thank you guys for having this facility available for us. Thank you for your countless works and hours to make these things happen. They're not doing them alone, so I want to definitely give kudos to my staff that's here, as president, and that was part of this. Again, we're going to continue to do this in our community. Again, thank you all so very, very much. Again, good night. God bless you.